Johnson & Johnson's COVID vaccine is in limbo today after the CDC advisors declined to vote on its future use in the United States. Use of that vaccine will remain paused while researchers just gather more data. Elizabeth Cohen is our CNN senior medical correspondent. Elizabeth, for people who've taken J&J, I mean, well, what happens now?
If you've taken J&J in the past 3 weeks, Brooke, there are certain things that you can look for. I want to emphasize how incredibly unlikely it would be that you would have a blood clot from this vaccine. The number of events has been so low. But if you've had that vaccine in the past 3 weeks and you develop a severe headache, or if you develop other problems such as severe leg pain or severe abdominal pain, you should go and talk to your doctor. Again, these numbers are very low, but doctors do want people to know that they should be on the lookout for these symptoms. And as you said, the CDC Advisory Committee is going to be thinking, once we get a little more data, can we make a recommendation? Can we say, let's put a warning on this vaccine? Let people know that sometimes these blood clots happen. Rarely, but they happen. Or do we want to say, you know what, we're finding, for example, young women are the group that are mostly affected. Don't get this if you're female and under the age of 50. They're going to need to sort this out. I think they were hoping for more time, but there's a lot of pressure for them to figure this out more quickly. Brooke?
And now we have news breaking literally minutes ago. The CEO of Pfizer is saying that people will likely need a third vaccine booster dose. They're saying maybe 6 to 12 months after the first round of shots. Was this expected?
Actually, this was expected. And actually, I think this is really good news, Brooke. The issue with all of these vaccines is that at the time that they were made, they didn't take into account the so-called South African variant because, well, it didn't exist. And so while the vaccines protect against it, they don't do a great job of protecting against it. They don't protect against the South African variant as well as they do against the kind of corona that was there before. So this vaccine this booster is supposed to help protect against the South African variant. That's really important because while it hasn't taken a hold very much in the United States, it's really taken a hold in South Africa. The concerns are that it could take a hold in other parts of the world as well. So yes, does it sound like a pain to get another shot, both physically and just sort of logistically? Yes. On the other hand, if it's going to protect you from this terrible variant, that would be great.
I'm in. Note to self, get the third booster. I want to take everyone to Capitol Hill.
Right.
It got a little testy a moment ago when Republican Congressman Jim Jordan essentially berated Dr. Anthony Fauci for not giving an exact date for when this pandemic will end. Everyone watch.
We had 15 days to slow the spread, turned into 1 year of lost liberty. What metrics, what measures, what has to happen before Americans get their freedoms back?
My message, Congressman Jordan, is to get as many people vaccinated as quickly as we possibly can to get the level of infection in this country low that it is no longer a threat. That is when. And I believe when that happens, you will see.
What determines when?
I'm sorry.
What measure? I mean, are we just going to continue this forever, or when do we get to the point? What measure? What standard? What objective outcome do we have to reach before Americans get their liberty and freedoms back?
You know, you're indicating liberty and freedom. I look at it as a public health measure to prevent people from dying and going to the hospital.
You don't think Americans' liberties have been threatened the last year, Dr. Fauci? They've been assaulted. Their liberties have.
I don't look at this as a liberty thing, Congressman Jordan.
Well, that's
I look
obvious.
At this as a public health thing. My recommendations are not a personal recommendation. It's based on the CDC guidance, which is
And I'm asking the question,
underscored.
what measures have to be attained before Americans get their First Amendment liberties back?
I just told you that.
No, you haven't given anything specific. You said, we hope when this tell me specifically.
Right
what measures have to be reached.
now we have about 60,000 infections a day, which is a very large risk for a surge. We're not talking about liberties. We're talking about a pandemic that has killed 560,000 Americans.
I
That's
get that,
what we're
Doc,
talking about.
and I don't disagree with that, and I understand how serious that is, but I also understand it's pretty serious when businesses have been shut down, people can't go to church, people can't assemble in their own homes with their friends, with their families, people can't go to a loved one's funeral, people can't get to their government, petition their representative to redress their grievances. Right. I also understand the First Amendment's pretty darn important, and it's been a year, and I want to know when Americans will get those First Amendment liberties back.
Well, you just said people cannot assemble in their own homes. They can. That's a CDC recommendation for vaccinated
Not last
people.
fall, they couldn't.
I didn't hear.
Not
you.
last fall, they couldn't. What number do we get our liberties back? Tell me the number. Tell me the number.
When 90% of the members of Congress get vaccinated.
But you're not a doctor, Mr. Clyburn. He is. What is the number?
I can't
Thank
give.
you for recognizing me, Mr. Clyburn. Thank you.
Chair
for
now
giving me the time.
recognizes for 5
I'd
minutes.
like my question
Ms.
answered.
Maloney.
I don't want.
Reclaiming my time.
want to-
Reclaiming my time.
Regular order.
No,
If-
Just a moment.
for all,
Mr.
I'm
Mr.
in.
Chairman, I don't want you to answer my question. The American people want Dr. Fauci to answer the
Well-
question. What does it have to be?
Expire, sir. If you need to respect the chair and shut your mouth.
Ooh, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, of course, this is Congressman Jim Jordan. But, Elizabeth, do you think Americans are growing increasingly just impatient with the lack of clarity of when this whole thing is going to end?
Of course, but Brooke, the reason why there's a lack of clarity is because nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody knows when it's going to end. And the more people who think like Congressman Jordan and think, basically I want to be able to do whatever I want, it's just going to get worse. If people could be disciplined and do things like wear masks and practice social distancing, then we would get the freedom that Congressman Jordan is describing. When there is a blizzard outside and police say, you know what, please don't go on the roads, it's too icy, it's too dangerous, are we taking away their liberties? No. There is a dangerous situation. There have been various measures that have been put in place. And to some extent, because people have not listened, we have had to continue with this. If people would listen and if we could buckle down and get this under control, then everything could go back to normal much more quickly. And that includes, of course, getting a vaccine.
Right. Elizabeth, thank you for all of that. Coming up here on CNN, President Biden responds to Russia's attacks on the U.S., expelling diplomats and imposing new hard-hitting sanctions. Let's talk about that next.